Hey, good morning, folks. It's Pastor Stephen here with another No Frills daily devotional. And today's topic of conversation is called Two Scoops Ahead. I don't know if you remember the old Kellogg's Raisin Bran commercials where they would talk about having 2 scoops of raisins in with the bran flakes and somehow that was going to make it better. I don't know. Bad news, Kellogg's. Raisin Bran still tastes terrible. It'd be better if, like, I don't know, Count Chocula had 2 scoops of marshmallows. Maybe that would be 2 scoops ahead. Or if you're a Lucky Charms person, 2 scoops of those marshmallows. That would get you going in the morning. Anyway, this idea of being 2 scoops ahead is a tie in to yesterday's conversation about freedom, exchange, and purpose. Okay, and that's what the gospel presents to us, right? It presents us freedom, freedom from our sin, freedom from our shame, exchange, trading my life for Jesus's life, trading my sin for his righteousness, right? And then purpose, walking out his will for my life. And all this was coming at you from actually the book of Isaiah, chapter 61. And I'm just going to read quick in the freedom portion. This is coming straight out of verse 1. He's talking about how he's called me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, to the release from darkness for prisoners. Okay, that was verse 1. And then you jump ahead to verse 3, to give them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the garment of praise instead of despair, right? There's the exchange. And then the purpose is that once that happens, then we're going to rebuild, we're going to restore, we're going to renew, we're going to be called priests of the Lord and ministers of our God, right? There was this process that I wanted to show you, right? This freedom, exchange, and purpose, and how the gospel and the goal of the gospel is to never get stuck at one of those levels. Don't stop at freedom. Okay? Because in order for it to be freedom, you got to move to the exchange. But don't stop at the exchange. Okay? Because in order for it to be the full deal, we got to move on to the next thing, purpose. And why? Why that track? Well, because look what the track leads to. And this is our topic of conversation of getting 2 scoops ahead. I'm going to read into verse 7. Okay? Verse 7. Okay? So there was the freedom, the exchange, the purpose, and look what's in store in verse 7. Instead of their shame, this is still Isaiah 61, my people will receive a double portion. And instead of disgrace, they will rejoice in their inheritance. And so they will inherit a double portion in their land, and everlasting joy will be theirs, or will fill their hearts. And it's this idea of when we do the gospel as the gospel's intended, when it's freedom and then exchange, then purpose, it all leads up to this thing called blessing. Blessing. So why follow that gospel tract? Because it leads to blessing. It starts with that freedom, right? It's this whole process leads to a blessing. Now, here's what I want you to realize though, okay? Because right away my thought would be, okay, well, how do I do this, right? Okay? And if you read into the passage, you'll realize that you don't do it. Jesus did it, all right? Jesus did it. Where does that freedom come from? It comes from him. Where does that exchange come from? It comes from him. Where does that purpose come from? It comes from him. Where does that blessing come from? It comes from him. All of that comes from him. Well then, what's our part? Right? Because don't we play a part? Yes, we do. Our part is called surrender. Our part is called willingness. Our part is called obedience. Our part is called trust. Well, that's hard. True. So I would also argue that the power to surrender, The power to be willing, the power to obey, and the power to trust also come from Him. And so it's this idea of this is what's required, but He's fulfilled the requirements. And so what do we do then? We lean into Him. I was at a church this last weekend and we were doing these litanies of trust, okay? And as I was reading through these litanies of trust, I was just seeing just this idea of what our lives can look like. And so I just want to hit you with a couple of these, all right? So the first litanies were all about things that we struggle with, and the mantra is deliver me, Jesus, right? From the false security that I have what it takes. Deliver me, Jesus. From refusals and reluctances in accepting your will. Deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being asked to give more than what I have. Deliver me, Jesus. And then we read this next litany, which is this, I trust in you, Lord. So here's what I'm struggling with, okay? But now I'm going to trust in you, that you are continually holding me, sustaining me, and loving me. Jesus, I trust in you. That your plan is better than anything else. Jesus, I trust in you. That you give me all the strength that I need for whatever is asked of me. Jesus, I trust in you. And so what I saw in these litanies was this beautiful aspect of surrender, right? Giving up to God my struggles. And then this trust. And so the goal of the gospel, remember, the goal of the gospel, you've heard me say this many times, it's not that I accept Jesus into my life. It's that I've been accepted into the life that He has for me. A life of freedom, a life of exchange, a life of purpose, and a life of obedience. Hey, you guys, have an awesome, awesome day and be blessed.